Hello, a huge thanks to Tanya Williams and the incredible team at Real World for having us today as part of your industry lineup. And of course, a happy 20th anniversary to all of you. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We're really looking forward to a great chat with Lulu Wei, the director, and Ali Weinstein, the producer of There's No Place Like This Place, Anyplace. For our audience online, we'll promise that we'll have a bit of time towards the end to take all of your questions. We'll try to get through as many as that we can. I'm EJ Alon. I'm the director of the Talent Fund with Telefilm Canada. I'm honored to be your moderator today. Before we begin, just a bit about the Talent Fund. We are a program that raises charitable support for emerging filmmakers from across the country, like our panelists today, specifically to Telefilm's Talent to Watch program. Since the fund's creation in 2012, we've raised over $18 million to support 165 projects and counting. A massive thank you to our donors from across the country, to our advisory committee, and our many industry partners, much like Real World, who help us discover stories to be told. Speaking of stories, Lulu and Ali, congrats on the success of your documentary. Your film certainly has been popping up in festivals across the country. I think I've seen it now 3 times in various iterations. Audiences and critics definitely have been responding to it so well. If it's okay with you both, let's jump in.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Great. Lulu, I'll start with you. Can you tell us a bit about the concept for your doc and how it came about? And maybe for viewers that might not be familiar with the institution that is Honest Eds, who may not be in Toronto, can you give them a bit of background and context?
So the film is about the redevelopment of a beloved Toronto landmark, the Honest Eds block in Mirvish Village, which was this artist colony that was in the block as well. And so the film sort of follows different people who are affected by the redevelopment. And Honest Eds is like landmark that was like a beacon for the immigrant population. And I'd say it's like a beacon for like one of the last beacons for like the working class. And it was just like an accessible place that people could go to get their goods, but also to like hang out. And so my story is one of the people who were affected in the block. And so I just started documenting everything that was happening around me because I wanted people to sort of see how magical the block was before it all got torn down. And I didn't think that I was going to make a feature film from it at the beginning, but I'm really happy that we had the opportunity to make the film.
Great. My parents immigrated in the 70s, and I remember my childhood. It was always that special place to go to stock up on stuff. So the doc itself went from premiering at Hot Docs last spring, a number of film festivals since, and to screens everywhere, I think just last week on CBC. And definitely it's been 4 years in the making for those watching that didn't know that. What inspired you and the team to make it, and why do you feel it was a meaningful story that needed to be told? Ali, I'll actually turn it to you if that's okay.
Sure, yeah. Well, I met Lulu about a year after she started shooting this film. She and I both did the same program at Ryerson, the same documentary master's program there, but we were in different years. Lulu actually graduated before me. So we met through like a mutual friend who had done the program as well. And right away, Lulu on that first meeting was telling me about what she was working on. And I was super happy to hear what she was doing because like everyone else in Toronto, I was very, very sad that Honest Eds was closing. It's such a special place to everyone that you talk to from this city. It just feels like everyone has memories, like family memories, personal memories, a sense of attachment to that place. And I kept wondering who was making the documentary, and I had never heard of anyone who was. And so when she told me what she was doing, I just thought that was really cool. And she was sort of like, I need a producer. I'm looking for a producer. And I was like, I just wanted to be a part of it. And at the time I had directed a little bit, like I had just finished directing my first feature myself. And I was working as an associate producer at a production company. And I was hoping to kind of hone my own producing skills and potentially get into that. So I was like, well, I could maybe produce for you. and it kind of just went from there. I just thought it was such an important story. And I felt like for me, what really drew me in was the nostalgia and the memories of what was there and what we were losing. I know that from the beginning, Lulu was interested in that, but she was also very, very interested in the ideas of how we build our cities. And when we lose something, what we're putting in the place of that building and whether it can benefit us. Obviously, we have this huge housing crisis in Toronto. There's not enough homes, everything's really, really expensive. And so she had this interest in telling the story of affordable housing and how we're building Toronto. And it's, I mean, we can get more into it later, but it's funny because I felt like I kept trying to be like, let's focus on honest ads and the memories. And she was like, I want to be looking at municipal politics. And I think in the end, the film does a really good job of balancing both of those things. And they're both so important. I mean, arguably Lulu's ideas were more important because they're forward looking and they, you know, they're very important to the future of our city. So yeah.
Lou, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the original goal was just to sort of archive and document what once existed, because when I was living there and meeting all these people, I didn't see anyone else like documenting it, and I wanted people to see like what these individual studios and businesses were like, and why this block was so special. And then slowly, you know, things were happening, and I've always found like urban planning and like the way like cities are built to be really interesting. I did a short in our MFA program about biking in Toronto and the sort of politics behind like biking and the infrastructure, and that made me like really interested in how cities are made. And so I think naturally, because it was a redevelopment and eventually it was happening to me, I realized this was like a bigger story, and I wanted to really use this block, little block, as a way to look at, you know, we have parts of our city that we love and they really make our city. And then like, how do we decide like which ones we get to keep, and how do we decide what sort of changes to allow for places for people to live? I'm still questioning that to this day, but I feel like the story is sort of a small microcosm look at something that's affecting, you know, many cities, and is going to keep affecting all of us as our cities keep changing.
Mm-hmm. No, thanks for that. I'll come back to sort of making the film in a bit. I just wanted to talk a bit about the Talent to Watch and the E20 experience, so to speak. You know, it consists of submitting this, what would have been a concept at the time 4+ years ago, and having it submitted officially through Real World, who is an industry partner of Telefilm's Talent to Watch program. Can you share with us just a bit what that process was like?
Yeah, so I applied for the E20 program and got into the program, and it was like amazing to meet so many awesome filmmakers and to get to connect with different filmmakers, and there were actors in it too. It was like people in different genres, a lot of people who weren't making documentaries, so it was cool to get to meet everybody. And then it was really awesome because they really helped us like learn about different pitching, and then we actually got to talk to a bunch of industry people who were either like, you know, commissioning editors at places, and we got to like pitch them in like sort of a speed dating pitch session, and that was really great practice. And it was actually really great to get to meet different funders that way, just for like a first face-to-face meeting kind of thing. But I think the funniest story is when I didn't know about Talent to Watch because it was the inaugural year that we were applying. And I was like, oh, you know, that's like a large sum of money. This is like, I don't know what this film is going to become. Like, you know, this documentary isn't big enough to like apply for this or to get it. But then I remember one of the people in my cohort, she ran into me at the subway, and she was just like, why don't you just apply? Like, it, you know, if you don't apply, you can't get it. But if you don't even try, like, you can't get it. But she was just like, just do it. And I was like, oh yeah, what's stopping me? I should just do it. And then and then now I'm like, look where we are. So I'm really grateful to have gotten through the program and also to have met people who've been so supportive and encouraging.
Ali, I know that you came in sort of a year and a bit afterwards, but maybe you, or if it's Lulu again, just tell us a bit about the efforts of the additional funding.
Yeah, well, I think at the point that I came in, Lulu hadn't really been seeking like official funding at that point, because Lulu is primarily a cinematographer as well as a director. And so she was just sort of filming everything that happened around her, like going to Markham Street, filming interviews with the different people who had stores on Markham Street, and gathering footage for, I think it's safe to say, like, you didn't know exactly what form it would all take. So we kind of, yeah, like we're brainstorming together where to apply for funding. And I guess initially it was to arts councils, and we weren't necessarily successful at the beginning. And yeah, once Lulu did Real World, and then there was that moment where she was like, okay, we should apply to Talent to Watch. That is where this all started in terms of really legitimizing the project. And I think also just like the act of having to write the application to Telefilm Talent to Watch and sort of visualizing what this could be as a feature film was really helpful. I mean, as annoying as the applications always are for any fund, it's like really part of the process in terms of visualizing what this actually is and where you want it to go story-wise. So we applied to that together, and then we got it, and that kind of opened up a lot more doors for us. We applied to the Hot Docs Cross Currents Fund after that, and got that money for a feature film. And then later, Lulu, I say Lulu because I think you really did sort of do this in large part by yourself. Like she took part in the Breakthrough program, the Doc Breakthrough program, and was pitching the film to different broadcasters, and CBC became interested. And so we were able to sell it to CBC after that as a sort of a different version, like a short version of the film. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Just because you mentioned filming, I'm now curious, going back to those many, many days, nights of shooting and whatnot, can you share with us a bit about that process, that production process? I don't know where to begin there, but you picked up the camera, and then what?
So I was actually working full-time in advertising, like shooting and directing, like in-house for different ad agencies when I first started the project, and for 2 years of it, because I think that's another thing as like a emerging filmmaker, is to figure out how does one sort of like get to work on a project and survive. So luckily, this just started off as a passion project, and I was just going before work, like filming every day, like the demolition kind of thing, or on weekends I would just go and like film whatever I could with whatever gear I could get my hands on. Like if we had a shoot for work, I would just like take it home and like use it, kind of thing. So it really was a passion project. And then when we got the funding, that's like when I was like, okay, we can actually like hire like a crew and get proper sound and like get more equipment and like do it properly. But it was, I mean, like probably slightly difficult sometimes for like Ali and our associate producer, because a lot of times everything was happening like, in the moment. And so it'd just be like, oh, I just found about this, like we have to go shoot it, or like, oh, like we have to go shoot this like next week. And so everything was just like very like fell into place very quickly a lot of times. And it wasn't like sort of like, here's the production schedule and these are our set, like days, because all these events were just happening and stuff.
Yeah, I guess I'll add that like towards the end, after Lulu had filmed all the demolition of Honest Ed's, And we wanted to sort of go deeper into some of the people's stories, because we just had so much footage of so many different people who were affected. We did kind of, we had sort of a loose production schedule, but it would shift sometimes.
Whatever it takes.
It wasn't like the most organized. But we would, that's sort of when we like went and did more like a couple different sit-down interviews with like the main characters in the film, like Aita or Gabor. A lot of that was actually shot after Honest Ed's was long gone, just because we kind of honed in on who to sort of focus on more, whose stories were the most compelling. It could tell different aspects of what was happening there.
Mm-hmm. The story definitely is about that block and the nostalgia, to your point earlier, just because you mentioned people, and definitely the I don't call them the characters, the people that you were able to capture in the doc. So I assume many of them you knew because you lived in the neighborhood, specifically Lulu, and you, Lally, of course, being around. Now that the film is in festivals, on screens, can you just share a bit, have you kept in touch with some of what would have been your neighbors? I don't want to spoil it also for those that haven't yet seen the doc, but maybe a bit of an update on the stars of your film.
Yeah, we've definitely kept in touch, like especially Aita, kept in touch with Aita. We have a lot of calls and I love chatting with her. And she's like shared what she thought of the film and what her community thought, which was like super amazing. And it really made me think about and remember like who I'm making the film for and why I made it. And Gabor, Ali and I went to go visit Gabor, very socially distanced. We brought him lunch from his favorite Korean place, like Arisu. That was, like you'd go there for lunch kind of thing. And we had a nice social distance, mask on, hang out with Gabor. And I still keep in touch with a bunch of other people who we couldn't put in the film on Markham Street. And yeah, and like I've since been and visited my neighbors who lived in 758 Bathurst, alternative thinking, and like gone up to their deck and like gotten to see what it looks like now and stuff. So, in the summertime. So that was really great. But yeah, I feel like these are amazing people and I want to stay in touch with them and support a different bookless cultural center, like with whatever for the future.
Definitely. You make it sound so easy, but I know it probably isn't. Can you share just some of the challenges that you may or may not have encountered? I'm assuming there might have been a few.
Yeah, I mean, this is, my first feature. I've never made a feature before. And for Ali, this was her first feature producing. And I think that, when you're both first time in like the roles that you have, it's hard to like know what to do sometimes. And I think especially since we're premiering the film in a pandemic, that's been a real struggle and a challenge to actually figure out your distribution strategy and like making a lot of tough decisions on how to get the film out there. That's been a big challenge. And I think when we're making the film, it was like, how do we sort of like find more funding? Because you're always trying to find more funding to finish the film. And also, I think just learning about the process of it all, and sort of, like you have people's lives that you're going into and how do you like work within schedules and all that. So with sort of like the post, like the process behind everything is all new, like for a feature. And so it was just a big learning process.
How about you, Ali?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it felt like every day was a struggle. No, it was also joyful all the time.
We're being all honest here. I love it.
Everything was hard because, like Lulu said, everything was new. And the fact that it was just, yeah, it was just sort of day by day. Like there were so many shoot days that Lulu did during the demolition. There was so much happening all the time. And so maybe one thing in a way was sort of like deciding where to focus. Like it just felt very big at the beginning. And I looked at footage that Lulu had shot before I came into it, and there were so many people that was like, oh, without a doubt, this person has to be in it. And because there were so many characters on Markham Street, like that area just attracted such interesting people. And so sort of like honing down what to focus on was hard for this film, as it is in a lot of documentaries. And so I think for that reason, actually, just working with our editor was so helpful. Sarah Bashinsky edited the film in the end, and she, we found her through. So I actually didn't know of her previously, but we found her. She came recommended to us through somebody, and she seemed to really get it from the beginning when she spoke to Lulu. I think she really understood. I think she's actually working on a film right now that she's been working on for years as a director, about a different redevelopment. And so I think there was something that really drew her to this project, and she got, and she really helped us both focus on like keep our focus on what was important, what was an interesting part of the story, what was something that the audience could connect to. And so, yeah, that was definitely a learning process as well.
So then the flip side to that, the proudest moment in this whole experience, if you could choose one, maybe two. Who wants to start on that one?
I think that I mean, like obviously finishing finishing the film and getting it
Fair
out
enough.
there and like having such good response to the film was, a highlight. But I think for me, like a moment that I like teared up from and like really like felt like I had like created something that meant something and was important, and also like it just, because it's like you read certain things that are like maybe like not like critic reviews, but like random people online reviewing things, and sometimes you're like, oh, like you're like, oh, maybe I should have done this or what or should have done that kind of, but I sort of grounded me and made me realize like why I made this film is like the people who were on the block, and it's for the people who were there, and also like for the like a love letter to Toronto. But I called Aita like after she'd watched the film and like had a little cry, and like Aita's just so inspiring. But what she said about like how her response to the film and like how we were able to also put archive in there of the Black community at Bloor and Bathurst. And it was very difficult to find that archive, which speaks to how like, marginalized communities and BIPOC communities don't necessarily get to have archives in history and have their footage documented in history. And having her tell me about like, how much she loved the film, but also how like her communities loved it, but how I represented like and documented their story and showed it not for like typical stories, and so it's like in an uplifting, beautiful way. And so that I was like, oh, it really hit me. And we had to go and like dig through microfiche to like find any mentions of like maybe a film or a show or something, to find footage of the Black community at Bloor and Bathurst. And it was like a lot of digging, and we actually had to go and digitize 16 millimeter film and like contact the original like filmmaker. But it was all worth it because Aita was like, oh, that was like my mom's friend, like I saw her in that shot. And I was like, this is nuts, like. And so I think that for me was just like so amazing to get to like hear that reaction from Aita, and to know that like this history also of the Black community at Bloor and Bathurst, it's going to be archived, and people will see this community on screen and know their history in the future, and that's not going to disappear like how we were trying to find all this footage from like the 70s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, to pick up on that point of the old archive, it was just so interesting because we had quite a bit of great archive of honest eds. Like we bought a bunch of archive from the CBC that was really fantastic. Also, my dad had, as like a 19-year-old, made this short film with his friends at school about honest eds, and that ended up being, a lot of that footage was in the film. It's really beautiful black and white footage from inside the store, and we had a lot to work with. But Lulu had gone and found this one particular film that she's talking about, where you could see like people in the Black community in downtown Toronto in the 70s. And she just had this like vision of wanting these two particular shots from that film at the end of the film. And it was like for 7 seconds. It was going to be no time. And finding the owner of this footage was so difficult. Like, he was not, both the visual researcher and myself were trying to call these numbers that we were finding. We were trying to email him, and he was not responding for literally months.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know why. Like, I'm not really sure why we kept doing it for just 7 seconds of footage, but it felt like Lulu really wanted it. And at that point, it just felt like a like Mission Impossible. I just like really wanted to get to the bottom of this. So we finally found him, and he gave us permission, and we digitized it right at the final hour, like right at the very last minute that our post house would have accepted this footage. And then when Aita saw the film, she said to Lulu, like, I saw one of my mom's friends in that particular shot. So that was incredibly rewarding. It felt like there was a reason. I don't know, you just like, you obviously felt this gut instinct to include that footage, and it really paid off. And I would just say, I don't know, it's a little cheesy, but like, I'm just like really proud of the final film and Lulu's vision, because I think just there's so many, like when you're making a film of this size, you just start off with all these ideas, and then you're in it, and you're shooting and you're editing, and it feels so complex, and it feels like you're never going to see the other side of it, and it feels like you can't even remember what you started out with and what your initial goals were. And then at the end, when I watch the film now, I'm just very moved by it all the time. Like, I find Aita's story really moving. I find Gabor's story very moving. And you know, I really see like it is exactly what Lulu described, and it took, you know, a bunch of different people working on the film to bring that vision together, but I can see exactly how it was all there from the beginning, and that's really cool. Like, that's very satisfying.
Awesome. I'll kind of turn it over to this. It's that advice question. And I think with everyone watching, myself included, just wanting to learn, just try to get a bit of a perspective, of course, from the two of you. But for those that want to create and are going into this journey of filmmaking, you both have done things in the past. You've both mentioned shorts, etc. Any advice for emerging directors and producers? Lou, I'll go back to you.
I think my advice is that it's a grind, and I think it's just important to stick with it. Like, I think that like just being passionate enough about the project to know that it's going to take sometimes it'll take a very long time to get it off the ground, is really important. And when you get a no, like a yes could happen somewhere else, or like if you just keep trying, like you know, you will get that yes. And I think that I guess for me, I felt lucky that I had a full-time job when I was starting out, so I could actually support myself. And this was just a passion project kind of thing. And so I'm still trying to figure out and learn how to make a film and have it, you know, be what, you know, you can like live off of. But I think for me, it's just like, don't give up, because like I faced tons of rejection at the beginning of this film. And I honestly, when I asked Ali if she wanted to hop on this, there was zero funding. I was like, Ali, I don't know if this film is ever going to go anywhere. I don't even know if it's going to be a film. I don't know if we'll ever get money or what's going to happen to it, but I just know that I have to make this, and I'm going to make it like no matter what, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really incredible that you had that, like, you just knew that you had to finish this project. And I think that's one of the hardest things for first-time filmmaker, well, for filmmakers at all. I mean, I think even if you've made several films, it's such a long process. It's so time consuming. It's like your baby, and unless you have the passion, it's hard to see it all the way through. And it's hard to believe sometimes that your ideas are valuable enough to push all that way. And I think for me, on my first film, which wasn't this film, like the first one that I directed, I feel like early stages, I was very lucky, and I had the opportunity to talk to someone who worked in the industry who said that he thought that I could get funding for my idea. And I don't think and he ended up becoming my executive producer, and just having like his name on my film and that sort of stamp of approval from someone other than myself who was, experienced in the industry. It kind of gave me the confidence to say like, oh, I'm gonna, like, after that, like I applied for development funding, and then I was on a roll, and I just kept applying for more and more money. But I honestly don't know if I would have had the confidence to even take that first step if no one external to myself had said, yes, this is worthwhile. So that's a tough one, because I want to say that, like, first time filmmakers, if you have the chance to sort of talk about your idea to whoever will listen, and try to like find the people that say yes, maybe not to giving you money, but just like want to champion your idea with you, and give you that kind of support, finding the sense that this is worthwhile from someone else who wants to support you is really, really helpful. I noticed there's like a couple of questions about the telefilm. I don't want to throw you off, EJ.
Okay.
Is that for later?
I think so, but
Let's do it later.
Yeah, okay.
Keep going.
I would love to. Oh, I was going to add that I think that through this film, I did a ton of talent labs, and I think they're so important, and they're just so awesome to get to do them. I did like the Real World E20 and the RIDM talent lab, and then the Hot Docs Doc Accelerator program, and the Doc organizations breakthrough program. I did a bunch with this film, but that just helped me like meet so many people who helped support me through it, with like getting to chat with other filmmakers and mentors about the project, and just using that to help me develop the pitch more and more, but also to develop like where everything was going creatively, and just to like learn from other people, and to get to hear from a lot of mentors, like with the Hot Docs Breakthrough Doc Accelerator program. Like I remember Nanfu Wong came and talked to us, and like was like, sometimes I don't even know what the story is going to be until like I finished the film. And that was really encouraging to know, like that's such a big, filmmaker who's so experienced, like has these similar feelings kind of thing. And with like E20, just being able to have that first face-to-face meeting with a lot of funders that you normally don't get the chance to have, and just hoping that you can like meet them face-to-face and talk to them, that they'll remember you. Because I think that's a thing that I feel like every sort of lab tells you about pitching, is they might not be giving you money or saying yes right there, but it's like a way for them to track you, but also to put a face to like your name. And I think that's like really important.
Actually, that was my next question, but I'm gonna twist it a bit. Just you mentioned earlier, we're COVID. We're in this crazy time. Definitely from the festival experience, or even just to have that non-socially distanced Korean lunch or coffee somewhere, in the space of this work that we're in with the industry, those conversations at events or after a screening, I personally miss them, but those are the moments that you make those connections and build a network. So definitely those talent lab or those accelerators that you mentioned, Lulu, are helpful. Any other programs that you think for those that are watching could be ones to watch for? Or just advice just to help continue conversations in this virtual world? I know we're all zoomed out to a degree, but how can we keep connected so that we keep getting to know people? Like, or I'll ask it this way, it's a very Toronto thing. What's the new version of your subway conversation to apply for a talent to watch in a world of Zoom?
I mean, like, I guess like all the talent labs that I did, but yeah, it's hard to figure out what will replace like just being at a screening and like talking to someone afterwards, or being at a festival, like happy hour or something, or just like talking to people and meeting them. I guess what we found interesting is like we did a distribution rendezvous thing with hot docs, and we had like meetings on Zoom with all these distributors, and it was actually maybe more chill because there's like less pressure because you're both like in your homes and that. So I think the Zoom like coffee like totally could work. And I mean, I know we're all still Zoom fatigued, but at the same time, it seems like we're all going back into lockdown. So this is the way of how it's going to be. So yeah, I guess just like connecting to other filmmakers, I think is really important, to like meet different people just through friends and stuff. Like I met Ali through a friend, and I didn't expect, us to find a producer through just meeting a friend kind of thing. And so I guess, yeah, just like constantly meeting other people and hoping that Zoom works.
Yeah, it feels like hard to say right now because I'm not sure, like obviously Lulu and I have not had the experience of applying to any kind of talent labs recent, like even in the past couple of years. It was all sort of more towards the start of this filmmaking process. But definitely like in terms of the doc breakthrough program, I would say, well, clearly Real World did so much for this film. But but the doc breakthrough program was really great just because so many different broadcasters come through. So like you're kind of meeting almost everyone there is to meet who could potentially give you money. So that's great. But yeah, I mean, it's hard because it has felt, to be honest, like obviously, a bit disappointing to be premiering a film strictly online and to not have that audience interaction and not feel the energy in a room. And I know it's been difficult for film festivals to grab people's attention and compete for their attention with all the different Zoom things happening and the fact that it's all at home and online. But there's a lot of people taking part in this right now, and that's really, really cool.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I feel like Lulu said, like maybe as we're sort of stuck more and more at home as the weather gets bad and lockdowns happening, I feel like I need to start making sure that I go to more film festival panels and film festival events, even outside the films, because I feel like that's a good way to see who's out there and connect with people afterwards. I know that I'm also on the board of a film festival called Breakthroughs Film Festival, which is for short films by emerging women filmmakers. And we did an online version of the festival in the spring, and some of the Q&As that we had after the films were just so awesome, just to see these filmmakers talk and like this interaction. They were, there weren't very many people attending on Zoom, but they were really quality conversations. And I'm actually working right now with one of the filmmakers that I met on this like online Q&A. So it can still happen.
You're right, Ali, you mentioned the questions. I'm just seeing them now.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's great. I'm gonna maybe just ask one more two-pronged question, then I'll throw it to the question. It's a question for you both, of course. What's next for the film, A, and then B, what's next for you? I don't know who wants to start.
I feel like Ali knows all the festivals that are coming up, but we did have our CBC like TV broadcast on October 8th, and then it will be coming on GEM in November, like so more people can watch it. Right now, I think that you can actually see the film part of the St. John's International Women's Film Festival and Hot Docs at home, like on their streaming platform. You could see it.
That one's over, Lulu.
Oh,
yesterday was last day.
Yesterday was last day of that. But I think, and then the Architecture and Design Film Festival is coming up, and then you can watch the film on that. And then I think Reframe Film Festival.
January. Yeah.
January.
We've been lucky to have the film play in a lot of different online festivals. Maybe the easiest thing, if people are interested, is to like follow us on Instagram or on Facebook, because we tend to post about whenever there's a new festival announcement, or if you go to our bio on Instagram, there's like links to all the tickets, the different film festivals. And it's just, there's no place like this place, right? That's it.
Yeah.
There's no place like this place. But yeah, so there's a few different online film festivals. Sorry, I cut you off, Lulu. Was there anything else?
Oh, no, I think that's it, and we're still trying to apply to different festivals and get the film out there.
Yeah. What are you doing next, Lulu?
I currently was just in the States filming for a month, camera operating on a doc series, and we have one more month of shooting on that, so I'll be shooting that. And then I've got a couple of my own projects in development. And after going through the process of the last one, I'm like, oh man, is this what the next one will it be this much work to get something off the ground? But yeah, I'm just trying to work on getting some projects of my own off the ground, and then DPing for like cinematography for other people's films.
And I'm just, I don't know, it's been a busy couple of years. Like, I was producing this film. I also directed a film that came out at the exact same time that this film came out, also at Hot Docs, and then also on CBC this summer. So I think like when the pandemic happened, I was quite burnt out, and then, shocked by everything in the world. And so I feel like I've just been kind of trying to get my head back on my shoulders. And I mean, frankly, like, I find it a little bit difficult to be creative these days, because I just think like the stories that we're all interested in have shifted so much. And so yeah, I mean, I'm still, I have a couple of ideas that are sort of like so early gestational phases that I wouldn't even be applying to anything yet for funding. I'm, doing like a short-term documentary research job right now for somebody in the interim, because we all gotta just keep working and make money, I guess, now that CERB's done. But yeah, I don't know, nothing to sort of report at this stage.
We'll stay tuned though. Great. Thank you both. I'm going to actually just take a peek at these questions, and I'm going to read a few of them. I think we might have answered this first one, but I'm going to read it anyway from Janet. Where can we see the doc now? But thanks for covering that. But this comment, I'll just read out to those watching. I'm from Pickering of West Indian descent, and trust me, we and many were very affected by the tearing down of our spot, our place to meet and feel included. So I think that's just a nod to your story. So thank you for that, Janet.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Gisela, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, but how many people and how many days were involved in filling in the Telefilm grant for you?
Just the two of us.
Yeah. For the video, I know there's a question about preparing the presentation video. When I realized, yes, I am going to apply to this. It's a very big application, but for the video, I had already shot a bunch of footage, so I knew what I wanted to sort of include in the video. And then I had a friend of mine help me with the actual sort of talking bits of the pitch video, and I sort of just in the video just said why it was important for me to tell the story, and like why I thought it was a really amazing story. And luckily I was able to actually like shoot it on the corner, and like shoot it on Markham Street, and shoot it at my apartment, and just like or outside of my apartment, and just sort of like give a sense of like the location it was happening at. And so I think I was really lucky in that I had visual material already, and I had access to the space I was shooting that the film was about, that I could like film my pitch video around there. But the whole application was just like me and Allie working on it, and then I had a friend help me with filming me, and then I edited together the video.
Great. Actually, there was a follow-up question from someone else about the pitch video, but I think you've covered it there. Let's see here. And for those watching online, definitely feel free to send us a few more questions. I think we're waiting for a few to come here. While we're waiting, I always try to do something a bit different. But Ali, I wondered if there was a question you wanted to ask Lulu, and vice versa.
Oh my gosh.
Putting you on the spot.
I guess this is like, I don't know, I can only think of annoying questions. I feel like Lulu won't like them. I don't know. Okay, I guess I want to ask you, what do you feel like you learned how we can create better and more affordable cities through the process of this? Do you feel like you have an answer to that question, or even something that you can share with people that you would like want more people to know or get involved in as a result of what you learned through this film?
Um, I think
Lulu?
Did we lose her temporarily?
She's like, I don't want to answer.
She's like, oh.
Uh-oh.
I should wait for her to come back online. Just to go back, Ali.
Yeah.
Sorry, you had mentioned something earlier, and I wrote it down. Just having met Lulu sort of a year in, I wanted to kind of pick up on that and just the experience of you being part of this project compared to what you've done before. Like, what were those learnings? There must have been many.
Yeah.
I don't know where to start.
Yeah, I mean, it was just my first time actually producing something, and I learned so much during this, but I also have a lot more to learn. And I think that's what I think with film in any role, there's just such a steep learning curve because you learn by doing. And I'm trying to think about what some of my biggest takeaways were. Gosh, I should be, I started a list of like stuff I would do next time on my next film, but I don't have that handy. But yeah, I mean, it was all really new to me. I mean, I think like legal stuff, money stuff, the stuff that's like, not so interesting to a lot of people. That kind of stuff was a steep learning curve for me. And in fact, we ended up, once we were able to get a bit more money, we were able to hire a production manager to help me with some of that stuff, because it is, I think producing just like involves so many different parts of your brain. If you're like helping to produce creatively and helping to like actually be on set and all this kind of stuff, and then, doing cost reports and cash flows and, production schedules and applying for insurance and all that kind of stuff is, yeah, it was very helpful to have someone helping us with the business affairs side of things. Yeah, I think Lulu's back now.
Sorry, my internet is being questionable right
But you're back.
Is it working again? I'm sorry to everybody if I keep freezing. My internet connection, I think, isn't so great right now.
I can hear you okay. Mm-hmm. Do you ask your question again, Ali?
Oh, Lulu, did you want to answer that question about what you learned about affordable housing?
Well, I think that Ali knows that now I get really into the weeds, and I've become like a nerd about urban planning and affordable housing. And I think through making this, I've learned so much. And I'm always just like, why can't we have this? Or why can't these things happen? Or, but I think that I learned a lot, and I hope that people will feel like galvanized that they want to do something and change the way, things are happening and the way our cities are being built. And I'm still asking that question because I feel like there's no one straight answer on how do we, get more affordable housing or build better cities. But definitely like it's like a political issue that all levels of government need to work together on. And I think that we all need to organize, and we need to really like let our, MPs and MPPs and our city councilors know what we want. And, the provincial government has really screwed a lot of things up for us with regards to housing in the past few years. So I think, we have to work on that. And we probably need to get inclusionary zoning to happen. And I think we need to redefine what the definition, like the real definition of affordable housing that the city and like the governments go off of. That whole definition, I think, needs to be redefined. But yeah, I'm like, I could talk about this forever and like love chatting with affordable housing experts about this. But I'll just leave it at that, and that I learned a lot, and I'm really happy that I got to delve deep into those issues.
Oh, thank you for that. I'm going to come back to your question for Ali. I'm just noticing a few more coming through. I think this is for either of you. Can you talk about this whole pandemic and how it's affected everything you're used to re the film industry?
I mean,
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to talk about, because when when it hit, we were already accepted into Hot Docs, and the film was done being edited, or very, very close to being done edited, but we still had to do all of our post. So that was our first experience of making a film during the pandemic, is all of the sound and color. But then more recently, Lulu just, like, I haven't actually done any shooting during the pandemic, but Lulu just had that experience. But yeah, at first with all the post, it was definitely challenging, because can you imagine, like, normally you're in a room looking at this like big massive screen with your colorist and trying to decide how you want the color palette to look shot to shot. And we were stuck at home, like live streaming on these various devices that had different color calibrations. And it was a really frustrating process. And we had to try to talk to, I mean, like, our post house was really great and trying, like, everything was new to everyone. They were trying to figure out ways to make it easier. And they even, like, you know, got us like a new iPad, because we had heard that that was the best color calibrated equipment to use. And so there was a lot of that kind of stuff happening, and it was just it was tricky. But they sort of opened up the lockdown a little bit by the time we were just finishing that stuff up. So Lulu had the chance to go into our post house for a couple of days of like the end of the color process and the end of the sound process, to just sort of fine tune things in person, you know, in a room with her mask on with the colorist or sound person. And we were just really lucky to be able to do that, because it felt very difficult from home. Lulu, are you frozen again? I was curious to hear her experiences of actually shooting. Do you want to talk about shooting during the pandemic?
Uh-oh. She's frozen.
Yeah. Can you hear me? I realize I'm freezing, sorry. And also, actually, like, we had to finish the CBC like version on Zoom a tiny bit, and also the like the work I did with my composer, we actually had to finish it during the pandemic, and that was challenging, because I really liked being before the pandemic together, and she would play me stuff, and I want to try that or that, and like, she was super open and making it really collaborative, which was really awesome. And trying to do that over Zoom was very hard, but like, we ended up doing it. And I think when I actually got to see like, when I got to go in to hear the sound mix, it was like, wow, I was like amazed. And that was like the only time I've seen it like on a bigger screen with proper like sound, was that one time in the post process. And I'm like hoping one day I'll get to see it in a theater. But it makes you think about how, you know, you put all this effort into making the film sound the way it does and look the way it does, but when you stream it online, it looks and sounds different to every single person, because it's like whatever thing you're watching it on is calibrated different. And I want to tell people, like, please use headphones when you're listening to the thing, kind of. But I think that's, you know, affected us pandemic wise. But luckily, you know, we were done shooting before the pandemic, and I have been on a bunch of shoots since the pandemic hit, like doc shoots, and it's been challenging and like very anxiety inducing in a lot of ways, and that you want to stay safe and keep your subject safe. But I think, at least like doc wise, I think it is doable, especially like keeping it mostly outside. But yeah, I mean, the pandemic, I think, that's how we've experienced it. And also with the distribution and the festival circuit side, I think that no one really knows what the right answer to and how to like put it out there is. And I think that's been like a big challenge for us during the pandemic.
Another question here, kind of a different topic. As a filmmaker, what were the biggest challenges coming out of school, and how did you overcome them? I'll pose that to you both.
Well, I feel like it took me a long time to actually like make my, first feature out of school. Whereas I know Allie, like you did the MFA program and you kind of like went right into making your first feature. I think for me, it was like trying to figure out how do you have a career as a filmmaker, but also like I didn't have something that I felt like was going to be that big project. And, like it's hard to break into the industry and to learn about how to make a film. And for me, I fell more into like the shooting for other people and directing other like more commercial side. And now I'm getting more back into doc, which I really love. And I guess, yeah, I feel like Allie has a better answer for how to do it.
Yeah, no, I think that's like what you did in terms of like working, in the field in a different role or like adjacent to what you did on this film is actually really, it makes sense. And it's sort of important because I do think so much of it is about relationships. And like, it's not really necessarily even like knowing the right people. It's just sort of, it's like what Lulu was saying about doing these different talent labs and then getting to meet the people who might be able to give you funding in the future. But it's not just the funders, it's also potential crew to work with, potential producers or directors or cinematographers. And I think, when we started out this project and it was early days before Lulu had any funding, there were a lot of favors pulled, and because like Lulu knows so many people in this city and so many people with so many different skills and talents through the different work that you've done. So that is actually all really helpful at the end of the day in getting something done down the line. Yeah, that's a tricky one. What's the biggest challenge? I kind of want to just go back to that feeling of like believing in yourself and believing in your project. I think that's one of the biggest challenges. So I don't really have an answer to it though. It's just like somehow persevering. And I think just talking to people about what you're working on, because I think that can kind of make it more real and drum up interest and help from other people.
Fair enough. Well, thank you. There are a couple more questions here, but they're in that space of challenges. But I didn't want to forget Lulu. We're getting the call for time. Lulu, if you had a question for Ali, and then we can wrap up. Dun, dun,
dun. What made you stick with the project when we first met and it was very that like there was no funding. I was like, I'm just doing this thing. Like what made you actually like believe in the project and want to like stay on and produce it?
This is like a trick question because she's trying to, there was like a phase where I kind of lost a little faith.
There is no trick question. No, I'm genuinely like,
she's
it's amazing. No, it's a genuine question to be curious on like how you stuck through all of it. Cause like it was my like passion and dream. And I'm like, you've stuck with me the whole way and like we've made this thing. And so it's like, I'm sure there's times when you've been very stressed. I put you through a lot of stress. And I'm like, what made you stick through all of it,
your passion and drive, and you're very charming, Lulu. That's another thing. I don't know if that can be advice to people, but the more charming you can be, the more people you can convince to work with you and do work for you. No, I was just so interested in this story, and I thought it was like, I was like really honored I continue to be really honored to get to be a part of this film, which I truly think, I'm very biased, but I just think it's going to be like loved for a long time because it's about this place that was so loved by so many people. And I was, really, really interested in that. And, really liked you. But Lulu, there was a point where like we hadn't gotten any funding for a while. And I you know, was busy. I was like working full time and I was like trying to do this other film that I was going to direct. And I actually kind of like quit. I was like, Lulu, I don't think I can do this anymore. I'm not actually getting us funding. And then we had already like put in the talent to watch application. And then a few months later, we got the money and Lulu's like, do you still want to do this? Which was so nice that you came back to me after I already quit. And I was like, okay. And so I think, I mean, that, you know, for better or for worse is unfortunately a big part of filmmaking, is just sort of, there are so many no's and you have to have perseverance through the no's, but when the yeses come, they can give you like that little bit of like steam, like that you needed at that point after such a long time of working, to be like, okay, there's like a vote of confidence and the outside world actually wants to see this and the outside world is now investing in it. So you have to keep going a little farther, you know? So I don't know, a combination of things.
Great.
Well, I think it's
Well,
just amazing that like you know, like you've been with me and the project ever since, and I couldn't have done it without you or anyone on the team, and especially we couldn't have done it, I don't think, without the talent to watch, because that was like really getting that funding, just like picked up the project and made it happen. It was like that stamp of approval that we needed, and for us personally to like have that knowledge that, you know, outside sources did feel like this was a real film and like we could actually do it was amazing. And I think it really did pick up our own spirits on persevering and keeping us going, because we were just like, I don't know if this is, you know, something that's going to happen or not.
Yeah.
well, thank you both very much. I can't believe this hour has gone by so quickly, but thank you for your time. Thanks for the chat. And thank you to everyone that is watching. To learn more about Telefilm and the Talent to Watch program, please visit telefilm.ca. Of course, Real World, or the E20 program, realworld.ca. I just wanted to quickly give a shout out to the other Talent to Watch and Talent Fund supported project that's part of the Real World Festival. On Sunday, it's an industry panel with the CMF on tokens, Sunday at 2 p.m. Enjoy, everyone. Keep safe, enjoy the films, and take care.